They told you data is the new oil. This is a lie. A convenient lie designed to make exploitation sound like progress. Oil is finite. Oil depletes. Oil costs money to extract. Oil eventually runs out. Data is infinite. Data regenerates. Data costs nothing to extract once the infrastructure exists. Data never runs out because you keep producing it every second, every click, every swipe, forever. Data isn't the new oil. Data is the new land. And if data is land, then the platforms are the feudal lords. The apps are the manors. The algorithms are the overseers. And you are the serf, working the digital fields, producing the harvest, owning nothing, kept alive just enough to keep producing. This is not a metaphor. This is the literal architecture of the digital economy. Welcome to neo-feudalism, where freedom is an app you don't own and liberty is the terms of service you didn't read. This is Dark Money Historian, and this is why your smartphone is a chain, not a tool. Let's understand what feudalism actually was, not the Hollywood version, the economic structure. The system of ownership and control that defined 1,000 years of human history. Medieval Europe operated on a simple principle. Nobody owned anything except those at the very top. The king owned the crown and the mandate from God. The church owned spiritual authority in vast tracts of land. The lords owned the estates and everything on them. Everyone else owned nothing. Absolutely nothing. The peasants, the serfs, they didn't own their homes, didn't own their tools, didn't own the food they grew. They had usage rights, permission to exist on the Lord's land, permission to work the Lord's fields, permission to keep just enough of the harvest to survive another season. In exchange for this permission, they gave everything: their labor, their produce, their freedom of movement, their children's future. Generation after generation born into the same system, working the same land, producing wealth for the same families, never accumulating, never owning, never escaping. Why didn't they revolt? Why accept such obvious exploitation? Because the Lord provided something invaluable: security, protection from bandits, protection from other lords, a place to exist in a violent world. The serf looked at his situation and thought, I have nothing, but at least I have this. At least I'm safe. At least I'm fed enough to survive. This is the psychology of feudalism, not chains and whips, but calculated dependency. Give people just enough to survive. Make them fear what they'd lose if they left. Make the alternative seem worse than the exploitation, and they'll work your fields forever, voluntarily, gratefully. The manor was self-contained. Everything happened within the Lord's domain. The serf was born there, worked there, married there, died there, never left. Never needed to. The world outside was dangerous, unknown. The manor was all they knew, all they needed to know. The Lord made sure of that. Now look at your phone. Look at the apps you use. Look at the platforms where you spend hours every day. What do you actually own? Your account? No, Facebook owns your account. Can delete it anytime. Can change the rules anytime. Can lock you out without explanation. Your content? No. Instagram owns your photos the moment you upload them. Your connections? No. LinkedIn owns your professional network. Decides who sees what, when, how. You own nothing. You have usage rights, permission to exist on Mark Zuckerberg's land, permission to post on Elon Musk's platform, permission to search on Google's infrastructure. In exchange for this permission, you give everything: your attention, your data, your behavior patterns, your relationships, your thoughts, your location, your biometric information, everything. The platforms are the digital manors, self-contained ecosystems. You're born into them digitally as a teenager. You work them constantly, creating content, engaging with ads, training algorithms. You marry through them: Tinder, Bumble, apps owned by the same corporate structures. You might even die on them, your profile becoming a memorial, a data ghost haunting the Lord's servers forever. And just like medieval serfs, you don't leave. Not because you can't, technically, because you're afraid of what you'd lose. Your connections are there. Your memories are there. Your identity is there. The alternative, being off the platforms, seems like exile, like non-existence. So you stay, keep producing, keep feeding the system. The digital lords provide the same thing medieval lords did: security, protection from the chaos of the unstructured internet, a place to exist, to connect, to be seen. You trade your data, your attention, your autonomy for the perceived safety of the walled garden, and you're grateful for it. You call it free, you call it convenient, you call it connection. But free means you're not the customer. Free means you're the product, the crop, the harvest. Your data isn't something you're selling, it's something you're producing. As labor, unpaid labor, digital serfdom, here's what makes it worse, what makes it more insidious than medieval feudalism. You're doing it voluntarily, enthusiastically even. Medieval serfs didn't have a choice. They were born into the system, couldn't leave without permission, couldn't imagine alternatives. You have a choice. You make it every day. Every time you open an app, every time you accept terms of service without reading them, Every time you click agree to data collection policies, you're choosing to enter the manor, choosing to work the fields, choosing to give away everything you produce. And what are you producing? Intelligence agencies spent decades trying to collect this information through force. MKUltra, COINTELPRO, mass surveillance programs, they tried to map human behavior, to predict actions, to control populations, and they mostly failed. Too expensive, too obvious, too much resistance. Then Silicon Valley accomplished it voluntarily, convinced billions of people to carry tracking devices everywhere, to document their entire lives, to report their location constantly, to reveal their relationships, their habits, their fears, their desires, all voluntarily, all while calling it social networking, community building, staying connected. You give them everything. Your face for facial recognition training, your voice for speech pattern analysis, your writing for natural language processing, your photos for image recognition, your movement patterns for predictive modeling, your social connections for network analysis. Every piece of data you create trains algorithms, makes them smarter, more accurate, better at predicting you, better at manipulating you, better at extracting value from you. You're not just working the field, you're building the machine that will automate your replacement. The harvest isn't crops, it's you, your behavior, your patterns, your predictability. And what are you producing? To insurance companies, to employers, to governments. You are the product being sold, the commodity being traded, the resource being extracted. And here's the darkest part. The system you're building, the AI you're training, it doesn't need you forever, just long enough to learn everything about human behavior, long enough to automate every task you currently perform, long enough to replace you completely. You're a digital serf farming your own obsolescence, working fields that will eventually be automated, training the machines that will make you unnecessary, all for free, all voluntarily, all while thinking you're the beneficiary of technological progress. This extends beyond social media. This is the architecture of modern life. Financial feudalism where your wealth isn't really yours. It's a number in a database, can be frozen, seized, inflated away. Controlled by institutions you don't control and rules you didn't write. Your bank account? Not your money, not really. It's the bank's liability to you. They can freeze it. Governments can seize it. Inflation can destroy it. You have usage rights, permission to access numbers on a screen, nothing physical, nothing you actually control. Your retirement fund? Not your savings, not really. It's an institution's promise to pay you eventually. Maybe, if the system holds, if the markets cooperate, if the rules don't change, if inflation doesn't destroy the value. You're trusting feudal lords with your future, hoping they honor the arrangement. Your digital currency? Not your property, not really, unless you control the keys. And even then, the infrastructure you're dependent on is controlled by others. The exchanges, the networks, the regulations. You're operating within someone else's system, on someone else's terms. This is neo-feudalism, where ownership is an illusion, where you have access but not control, where you produce but don't own the product, where you work but don't control the value, where your life exists within systems designed to extract from you while giving back just enough to keep you compliant. The medieval serf knew his place, understood his station, accepted the exploitation because it was visible, explicit. You don't even see it. You think you're free, think you're a customer, think you're benefiting from services. You're not. You're producing value for digital landlords while owning nothing, creating wealth for platforms while accumulating none, working fields you'll never inherit while training machines to replace you. So what do you do? How do you escape digital feudalism when it's woven into modern life? First, acknowledge it. Understand that the platforms aren't serving you, you're serving them. Understand that free means you're the crop. Understand that convenience is the price of autonomy. Second, reclaim ownership. Real ownership, not usage rights, not permission, physical possession, data you control, assets you hold, skills you own, knowledge you possess, things that can't be deleted with a terms of service update, can't be seized with an algorithm change, can't be deprecated when you're no longer profitable to extract from. Third, understand that if you don't control the rules of your wealth, your data, your digital existence, you're not free. You're a serf with better technology, a peasant with a smartphone, a worker on someone else's land calling it your own. The digital revolution wasn't liberation. It was the most efficient implementation of feudalism in human history. Voluntary, global, inescapable, and profitable beyond anything medieval lords could imagine, because they convinced you that the chains are freedom, that the fields are opportunity, that serfdom is connection. Your attention is finite, your data is valuable, your time is irreplaceable, and you're giving it all away to lords who've built castles of code, who've enclosed the digital commons, who've turned human connection into extractable resources, who've made you a product while calling you a user. This is Dark Money Historian. We follow the money to show you that progress and oppression often wear the same face. If these platforms are digital fiefdoms, Which one is the most ruthless lord? Which app field do you spend most of your time working? Confess in the comments which platform owns your attention, and let's discuss whether we're free users or digital serfs.